So you got offered a deal for selling your company, and you were offered an amount of money up front, and then you were offered an earnout as part of a condition. So what's an earnout, and when should you accept one? This is a fantastic question. I'm Scott Sylvan Bell, coming to you live from Consulting Secrets on a perfect day to talk about business, growth, opportunities, selling your business, earnouts, and a fantastic day to talk about you. I'm coming to you live from Haleiwa, Oahu, one of my favorite places on earth. It's windy outside today, so I'm shooting the video from the car. All right, so an earnout is a deferred consideration tied to a future performance. It's a condition. So conditions may come from keeping clients, keeping employees, keeping profits. I mean, like anything that they say is of value to the company. And so earnouts are those conditions that when not met, you don't get paid. And it could be a flat fee or it can be a sliding scale. So we're going to use a $10 million payout. We got you to a $10 million payout. And the buyer says, we're going to give you $8 million up front. Okay. We know that $8 million is going to land somehow into your bank account. However, you're going to strategically do that based upon taxes. Now, the $2 million, part of it may be a holdback where it's just for liabilities and it's standard, might be $500,000. And then what you have to do is perform to get the bonus. It's kind of a reverse bonus or the earnout. And buyers love earnouts because if you don't prove what you had, then it's less risk for them. They don't have to pay you. Sellers may or may not like earnouts because you may not hit those numbers. Taxes can change. Market conditions can change. And this is why you really want to plan on selling 5 years, 4 years, 3 years, 2 years out, whatever date works to your advantage to at least strategically start putting things in place. This is one of the reasons that I wrote the exit ratio 360 is so you can self-test and say, hey, how close am I to being prepared to exit? And so like these earnouts, they may be longer than a year. They may be 2 years. It really depends upon your risk factor. The more risk you have, the longer term that somebody can put on an earnout. And like they may stagger it. They may say 20% the first year and then 10% the second year and then 5% the third year. Whatever numbers that they decide to use. I've seen some wild examples before, and I've seen some pretty straightforward ones. And the things that you really want to know is there's 3 questions you should be asking. Who controls the decisions that drive the metrics? Right? You really want to get those negotiated before the deal even gets signed. Number 2, how are those numbers defined? What math are you using? What report? How are you pulling that report? What buttons are you hitting? What order of buttons are you hitting? Right? What's included and what's not included? And then last on this list is what happens if the buyer changes strategy? Because that's not up to you. That's a change that they made. So like what you're going to find a lot of times inside of a company when they get bought, nothing changes really for the first 6 months to a year because there might be an earnout. There might be a holdback. There might be like, we're not going to give you money if XYZ happens. And so you got to be prepared for that. And it really does work to your advantage to have this conversation up front and ask, how's revenue defined? Who controls the decisions, and what happens if the strategy gets changed? Now, if you truly believe that your company is an A+ company, you may say, if I'm going to do an earnout, I want more money, right? If you're going to put it on the line, I'm going to put it on the line. I want more money, and you can pay me in the form of the earnout. This is a straight up negotiation. You got to know. And some buyers may go, no, not going to do it. Some will go, cool, game on. This is why it's important for you to talk to a couple of different companies. If you believe in your operations, you believe in your team, you believe in everything that's going on, it's your role and responsibility to try to get as much as you can on the way out, right? You might as well start in advance. You might as well start thinking in terms of, okay, if they're going to come to me and say that they need an earnout, then cool. Be aware that this is a version of an LOI smackdown. An LOI smackdown is this. You have a company doing $20 million a year in revenue. You've got $5 million in profit. Got a $5 million profit. And somebody comes to you and says, we're going to give you a 10 multiple. 10. We're going to give you $50 million for your company. Knowing that they're never ever going to pay 10, that they're going to go through and they're going to pick the company apart. And then they're going to say, we'll give you $50 million under this earnout condition, that earnout condition, this earnout condition, XYZ, 1, 2, 3. And in all realities, they knew that they were going to give you a 7 times multiple the entire time. They were just trying to get you under LOI for 90 days so that you had nowhere to move. They were boxing you in. It's a strategy on their part. And not all companies do this. There's some companies that do it. I am not a fan of that. I like a straight up deal. We looked at the books. We looked at the numbers. Here's what the deal is. And it might adjust slightly based upon what's going on. If there's something egregious, it's going to move a lot. But we've dug into the books and we've taken a look. And if you're like, hey, Scott, when do I walk away from an earnout? Okay, I'm not giving you legal advice. I'm giving you a strategy. Okay, you have to decide what you want to do from here. If the buyer comes to you and says, hey, we're not going to define the metrics, we're not going to talk about how the revenue is done or who does these numbers, and we're not going to talk about what the strategy is going to be because we're going to change it, you have to have red flags too. And you have to have yellow flags and you have to have green flags. So if you say, hey, who controls the decision that drives the metrics? We're not telling you that. Hey, how is revenue defined? We're not telling you that. Hey, what happens when the buyer changes strategy? We're not telling you that. Those are three, in my mind, those are three giant red flags. Those are stadium-sized red flags. But if you say, hey, who controls the decisions and the metrics? That's Bob. You're going to talk to Bob. How is the revenue defined? We're going to take all of these steps, and this is how we're going to pull this report. And then what happens if you change strategy? We're not. Well, then I want that in writing, right? Once again, get some legal advice on this because I'm not an attorney. I am a taco enthusiast. I'm a gelato enthusiast. I'm a pizza enthusiast, but I am not an attorney. So if the conditions are too much for you, then you want to really think about this before you go to sell. Like, what conditions are acceptable for you? This is part of your Titans thesis. Now, just because you have a Titans thesis doesn't mean you give everything to the buyer. You do hold back some information on your part. You got one of three things to do from here. Just one of three. Find the subscribe button, click on it. Every time I send a video, you'll get an update. 2, hit follow. 3, share this video with a friend. We'll see you soon. Thanks for watching.